There is startling news in the realms of hip-hop and romance. And if what is being alleged is even remotely true, things behind the scenes have clearly gotten out of control. There was a shocking conversation between Mendeecees and Sierra Gates, according to people close to production. Harris got so unpredictable that the producers had to close the entire set. Now, fans are divided, confused, and utterly shocked. According to sources, Mendeecees immediately refuted Sierra's accusation that he had gone too far, which sparked the incident. However, nobody saw what would happen next. Insiders claim that Mendeecees, who is usually calm and in control, went completely wild. As furniture was tossed, crew personnel hurried to separate the actors. The cameras cut in the middle of the scene, so security had to physically remove him from the set. Was it just that the scenario was so intense? Or did Sierra's unfounded accusation drive Mendeecees over a cliff he had been standing on for too long? According to social media users, this might mark the beginning of a significant franchise overhaul that would include Yan Dandy, the producers, and possibly legal counsel. We are evaluating what we have heard since this is more than just drama. It's dangerous. Started slowly, like most things on sets like this. The silence would be broken in another 15 minutes, but behind the scenes, individuals were making jokes, adjusting their mics, and sipping from red Solo cups. Sierra took longer than anticipated to arrive. Her glitzy employees had been agitated since the morning, discussing something she planned to reveal. No one really thought about it until she walked in with that look on her face. Not angry, not raucous, simply quiet, just still. Men had already taken their seats for a humorous scenario on the events in Atlanta. It was a light moment, the kind that filmmakers use to create tension between more important parts. But when Sierra sat opposite him and took his position, the mood shifted. The team learned about it. Even the sound engineer paused, as if his instincts were warning him that this scene would not work out. They said Sierra wasted no time. She briefly took off her microphone pack, adjusted it herself, and then leaned in front of the camera. She went to Mendeecees and asked if they were rolling when the cameraman nodded. "You made me uncomfortable last week, and I don't like the way you talk to women." They weren't light words. They weren't merely thrown out in the middle of a conversation by anyone on these programs. Mendeecees, who had been slouching a bit in his seat, straightened up. He blinked slowly, as if unsure if he had heard correctly. Then he looked at the producer behind the camera, trying to figure out if this was a scene or a trap. "What are you talking about?" he asked calmly. But his voice was harsh. Sierra kept observing him. Assuming the mics wouldn't pick it up, someone on set quietly gasped. The kind that lets you know the calm was temporary. Another cast member, who wasn't supposed to be in this play, looked under the curtain as though they had just heard something inappropriate. "I'm talking about when you got in my face in the parking lot. It's the way you leaned in, the way you pointed. You don't talk to me like that." With a calm expression, Mendeecees leaned forward gradually, but you could see his jaw tightening. He answered, "I never touched you," Sierra told him. "Don't play with that." She had that smile that declared she was an expert at what she was doing, but it wasn't a friendly one. "I never said you did," she continued, leaning back. The phrase, "but you made me feel like you could change the whole mood." The cameras kept rolling, even though the producer had already started messaging someone behind the scenes. The showrunner, legal, or someone higher may have sent the SMS, but it was sent. People ceased behaving as though this was just another filming day. For a while, many sat still, the tense type of stillness. Then he stood up slowly and methodically. He wasn't yelling. He didn't have anything to throw. Not quite yet. He just stood there and stared at her. He asked, "Are you trying to ruin me?" Not dramatically, just like someone who had too many knives in his back already. Sierra didn't bat an eye. "I'm telling the truth." Mendeecees snorted and started to pace behind the camera crew, avoiding the ceiling as though he were searching for patients who weren't there. He was talking, but most of it was off-mic storming. and just moving too fast for the audio guy to keep tracking him cleanly, and he was making low curses. This could be the moment. A makeup artist backed out of the room quietly, her brushes still in her hand, and a producer said, "No, keep it going." When he came back into the frame, Meanie spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "On camera, you're lying to me. Just a second." For a headline, for what purpose? Sierra folded her arms. "Not scared of you. Not trying to." "Scare you?" he fired back. "I'm trying to understand the advantages you get from making me look different." Voices started to overlap. A production assistant tried to speak. Another crew member dropped a pack of microphones, and it was too late when someone else said, "Let's cool off for a second." The energy had already changed when Mendeecees removed his microphone from his chest, and it splintered on the floor, causing the boom operator to mutter a curse. Mendeecees then grabbed a nearby foldable chair, not to throw it, but simply to get it out of his way because it was making noise and creating stress, something no one needs. A few seconds later, Yandi showed up. She was clearly called, even though she wasn't supposed to be there. She glanced around the room and saw the look on his face. She had seen the disappointment, not the anger, before. She went straight to him, gently grasped his wrist, and whispered, "Just step outside with me." But he quickly but softly pulled his arm away and said, "I'm not doing this." "I'm likewise." Sierra stood up. "If the truth angers you, it's not my responsibility. Not going to let people play with my name like this." That was the last straw. K guard cut him off before he could speak another word. Mendeecees, who had been quietly sitting by the wall for the majority of the shoot in case things became ugly, went to the crew and said, "Cut the scene. Cut the whole thing. I'm not doing this fake reality bullshit." He now took a hard but silent stride in front of Mendeecees. The guard said, "Just step outside for a second." Mendeecees hesitated. His hands began to shake a little now, not out of fear, but holding too much in. He did not scream or cuss once more. With a single nod, he said, "Y'all going to regret this?" and walked away, Yandandi silently following the guard in tow. The room didn't move. No one knew whether they should continue rolling or begin packing. Sierra looked around, wondering if she had overreached herself or if this was exactly what she had intended. The hush that fell when Meanies left the room had a peculiar quality, and everyone in the room knew that something had broken open that would be hard to patch. So she sat back down, took a deep breath, and whispered to herself in a low voice, "I said what I said," but the silence that followed was louder than anything else. It was not only awkward, it was weighted. The silence following an explosion, when nobody is aware of the full magnitude of the destruction and the dust is still in the air. There was no official announcement of the downsizing, but nobody was speaking into microphones. Crew members stood around holding cables without moving. The cameras kept rolling, but the energy was gone. It felt like everyone was waiting for someone else to say what they had to say. Yandi had followed him out the side door. She didn't say anything at first. Mendeecees was pacing the lot behind the set trailers. Breathing deeply, his head tilted toward the sky as though he were trying to hold back a scream. He raised his chest, and with every breath, he descended, flexing his hands by his sides as though he were grasping something invisible. She stood a few steps away to give him space, but her eyes never left his face. Without looking at her, he eventually questioned, "Are they going to use that?" Yandandi gave a slow nod. "They're going to modify that to make me look crazy. I know. Do you believe I touched her?" As though the question itself were too burdensome, his voice cracked a little. "No," she answered hurriedly. "Too soon. Been working hard to keep myself clean and move properly for the kids and for us. I stayed out of the spotlight. I have no desire to return to this show at all. You spoke to me." She didn't doubt him because she knew how bad it looked and how easily the world jumps on a headline. Yandi stepped forward and said, "You've also behaved well. You've performed better than expected, but you must not let this break you. It was her, it wasn't you. We know the difference." He shook his head, but it didn't matter what the truth was. Not when someone says it in front of the camera. Sierra was still mic'd up when she came back inside. The cameras switched to a loose setup and took reaction shots of the actors' crew and helpers talking among themselves. Producers were huddled around a laptop in the corner, sending desperate texts. When LHHATL arrived around that time in the morning, someone had already taken a 10-second film of Sierra saying, "You made me feel like you could, but everyone knew it would be circulated by morning." She wasn't supposed to be on set that day, but she got a phone call that led her to show up in sweatpants and sunglasses. No glitz. No earrings, because she wanted to know straight out if there was a problem with Mendeecees. She walked straight into the middle of the room and yelled, "What the hell happened?" "I just left Kirk for an hour," Sierra replied without flinching. It's the kind of stare that reads every line, every movement, every wince, and glances across your complete face. LHHATL looked at her for a long time before saying, "I told my truth." Sierra said, "I never said that," in a stern tone. "Did he touch you? But that's what people will hear. You know that." "Everyone knows that." Sierra shrugged. LHHATL shouted, "We need to talk to legal because there is too much energy in the room. We are off schedule until further notice, but no one has been sent home yet. I'm not to blame. He made me feel that way," to the side. Finally, one of the producers appeared. She was small, shrewd, and always carrying a clipboard. "All right," she said, "we're going to stop shooting for today." Mendeecees had sat on the step behind the trailer back outside, his elbows resting on his knees, his palms clasped together as if he were praying without using words, and Yandandi squatted beside him. The change was instantly apparent. The cast dispersed. The atmosphere grew cold as the glam team started to quietly take up their kits. There was no chaos. Withdrawal was the reason, and it seemed as though everyone's intention was to pull away. "From the recent events," he whispered, "will they forget that? Will they broadcast it?" She whispered softly. "They might not. It's not too late. They could pull it, especially if you talk to them calmly. Give your side." He glanced at her. "Do you think they want my side?" That was the problem. Word had already knew the answer, but word had already started to spread. Crew members texted friends, friends sent enigmatic tweets, and fans were already piecing together clues. 3 fan sites had already screen captured and posted a blurry Instagram story from one of the hairstylists, which read, "Some people don't know how to act when you expose their energy," over a grainy stage photo. Immediately, the comments started coming in. "Who are you all going to be?" When Yandi saw the final one, her stomach churned. She handed Mendeecees her phone without a word. "Is this about men's? Did someone get kicked off the show? I heard he hit somebody." He read the comment and looked through the others without saying a word. "They already believe it," he informed them. "It is currently accessible." Inside the set trailer, producers were in damage control mode, having already contacted VH1's legal department. Sierra rejected the idea that they immediately record a follow-up to clarify her meaning, telling them, "I said what I meant, I have no duty to explain, and no one would be asking for clarification if it were a man who felt threatened. But you said he made you feel unsafe." There are many ways to interpret that. The producer sighed and said, "Then maybe he shouldn't have acted like that." Sierra looked lifeless in front of the camera, which was more precious in a perverse way, because it was clear that Sierra would not walk anything back. The network was all about controversy, and everyone knew that messy storylines drove ratings, even though no one said it aloud. "That's not my problem," she repeated, without concern. Another person added their voice. "But it's your fault if he leaves the program because of this. And the more chaos, the better, as long as it wasn't legally explosive." Kirk was in Seor, another part of the trailer, talking privately to Rashida, who had just arrived and had heard the whole story directly from her lips when he asked, "You think Sierra planned this?" LHHATL said, "I think she knew what was going to happen. She wanted the answer, but she just didn't think he would go that far. I heard that he did nothing at all." "It doesn't matter anymore," she muttered. "People believe what they want to believe." That was the harsh truth. The damage was done, whether it was real or fake, and it wasn't coming back. Out back, Yandandi sat down quietly beside Mendeecees. She didn't say anything, and he didn't either. A heated argument between Sierra and Mendeecees on the Love and Hip Hop stage was the subject of 3 major gossip websites within an hour, all of which lacked a video and quotes. But the damage was done by the volume of the headlines. They just sat there together as the world started to analyze what had actually happened without even waiting to hear his side. Piece by piece, moment by moment. One tweet read, "Sierra exposes Love and Hip Hop castmate for making her feel unsafe." Another said, "Mendeecees reportedly goes off after co-star's chilling confession." When Mendeecees got back to his phone, he was tagged in hundreds of direct messages, missed calls, and comments. No one even wanted to know what had happened. They were just taking sides. Yandi had warned him about using the internet and had begged him to stay away from his hands slowed as he read one comment in particular as he silently navigated through the confusion. But he couldn't help himself. The damage was already extensive, and he needed to see it. "I always felt hostile with him. The way he occasionally speaks to Yandande gives it away." This is not at all surprising. If he did it, he had to be permanently removed from the show. He was not pleased with that story either. He did not want this to become a gender, racial, or political issue. He wanted the truth to be significant. He was smarter, though. People did not like the truth. Meanwhile, production was completely shut down. All the cameras were halted. All subsequent scenarios were paused. The excitement on the scene had turned to cold calculation. The executive producers were trying to figure out whether this incident would be good for them in a conversation with the network or hurt them. Several were trying to rest against it. Some wanted to throw the video out entirely. Inside a side trailer, Sierra and a producer reconnected. This time it was different. Fewer questions, more strategy. "You have to be prepared to receive criticism," she told Sierra calmly. "What was it?" I said. Sierra's response was unimpressive. "I get it, but it seems like you accused him of touching you based on the way you said it and how it has already been shared." Sierra raised an eyebrow. "I said he didn't. When I said I felt unsafe, that's what I've experienced." The producer paused. "Would you be amenable to having your argument made on tape during a confessional?" "Not to walk it back, but to be clear," Sierra smiled. "Are you referring to damage control? Your truth? Before ever?" She nodded and just stopped the recording. On the other side of the lot, Mendeecees was having what felt more like a breakdown than a meeting. Across from his senior producer, he sat with his hands clenched and his jaw tense. "If you guys air that, I can't get back from this," he said. "Even if I say my piece and Yandi supports me, the video is already accessible. The narrative is already underway." The producer did not deny it. "We're attempting to make a decision." "No," he cut me off. "You've already figured it out. It will be useful to you. What you want is the drama. What you want are the numbers. According to the producer, you understand how this operates. It's a reality program. We show the result. Okay. No, what you wish to display is already clear to you." He didn't talk loudly, but it was obvious that he was hurting. This was about more than one moment now. That took care of everything he had been trying to fix. The image, the reputation, the years spent proving he was not the same man from his past. And now that he had been charged on video, however vaguely, it was all slipping through his fingers. Yandandi was standing nearby talking to legal. She was searching for a provision that would protect them from defamatory charges. The legal team was vague and uncommitted, hiding behind standard contracts. Nothing was stopped by vague charges, and it was clear that they wouldn't halt anything unless it crossed a legal boundary. By dusk, the entire cast was aware of the scene. Some were getting in touch with Yandi in private to ask whether it was true. Others were already formulating their own responses, prepared for confessions that had not even been approved yet. A few of them had previously, none of them had seen the full film, and they had chosen sides. From her house, Bambi had posted a blank screen photo and an enigmatic comment. Some people will do anything to attract attention. After Scrappy shared an image that said, "Every villain got a victim complex," admirers started making assumptions. Some believed that everything was a hoax. Some others vowed that Sierra will be the next big terrible person. Some were calling for the cancellation of the entire initiative. In the middle of all of this, Mendeecees and Yandandi sat in their living room in absolute silence. The kids were at a cousin's house. The illumination was low. Yandandi was trying to follow the most recent discussion on Twitter. Mendeecees no longer even looked at his phone. "Do you want to come back and shoot?" softly she asked. He shook his head. "Not like this. Not when my name is being teased." "Then don't," she pleaded. "Get out." He glanced in her direction and let the lie win out. "No," she whispered. "Let the truth speak for itself without cameras." But even as she said it, they both knew it wasn't that simple. This was not just a personal moment. It was now public and viral. And however he accomplished it, it was up to someone somewhere to take it from here and make it into whatever fiction they wanted. Meanwhile, on the scene, Sierra and her assistant kept laughing. Her mood remained unchanged. She was already talking about what she will wear in the next show. Someone showed her on a phone how well-liked her confession video was already. When asked if she was nervous about the criticism, she replied with a smile, "They've eaten it up. They'll forget by next week," she replied. This had crossed a line that she hadn't fully considered, because even if people moved on, the ones who witnessed what truly happened wouldn't forget either. She knew deep down that this was different from other dramas, but the following morning felt like a storm had passed. But the sky was still dark, and no one from production had sent a schedule. Group texts, call sheets, or transport vans lined up for the next shoot. The house was quiet, but his mind was racing, reliving the scene over and over again. Mendeecees hadn't slept, and he'd spent the night on the couch, alternating between silence and frustration, trying not to wake Yandi, who eventually fell asleep next to him, fully clothed, her phone still in her hand. Love and Hip Hop was on hold, unofficially, because no one knew how to proceed after what had happened between Sierra and Mendeecees. One sentence had drawn him back into a story he'd worked so hard to avoid, and Yandandi woke up just after sunrise. Sat next to him, silently scrolling through her phone. More blogs, more updates, and a clip that wasn't even intended for public viewing. The words Sierra used, the way she looked at him, and the way everyone else looked at him after, as if something had changed, as if he had become dangerous. Even though he hadn't done anything, it was a feeling he'd fought against for years. Ever since he'd gotten out, trying to be better, showing up, right? "They're trying to frame it like a pattern," she said quietly, adding that there was no sound. Only the picture with the tagline, "Rage is real," before Mendeecees slammed his microphone to the floor. "They're unearthing old scenes, old interviews, and things you said years ago." He shook his head slowly, but it made no difference. He just stood up and walked to the kitchen, Yandandi trailing him. "We can still influence the outcome of this," Yandandi sighed. "Does it matter what I say now? It's already out there." He turned to face her. "Or do we?" The leaks continued despite the producer's hasty return to the set and BH1's legal team's official warning that nothing would air until all parties had a chance to answer on camera. Someone had already shown the draft footage to a friend, and it was clear that different versions of the story were circulating the industry, with assistants spreading partial truths, crew members who had been silent yesterday speaking up, and extras sharing their versions. Two senior producers were in a production office discussing their next move. "If we air it, we risk being sued. If we cut it, we lose the rating spike." Meanwhile, Kirk and Rashida were at home talking about what had happened. Kirk had had a brief but insightful talk with Mendeecees late the night before. Lest he signs off, he won't sign and then spin it. How? The conversation was cold and calculated. They weren't talking about truth, they were talking about storylines. In response, LHHATL said, "And people have already decided who he is." Kirk expressed his sadness, saying to him, "This is more than just drama. It's more significant because it touches on his past. You believe he will give up? Not." "Sure," she said, "but they'll blame it on guilt if he does. They'll claim it's spin if he stays. They're stuck in any scenario." Yandandi started contacting bloggers, influencers, and former producers she trusted to get his side of the story out before the network twisted it. And she also contacted a podcast host she knew who was unbiased and would let Mendeecees speak without passing judgment. When he eventually agreed to do so, it wasn't to defend himself, but rather because he needed to look his kids in the eye and say he didn't remain silent when someone lied on the podcast was raw. Featuring just Mendeecees and a microphone? People don't understand what it's like to be accused of something you didn't do on camera. They don't see the damage, he remarked. They just see the video, the controversy, and the drama. But beneath it all are actual people, families, history, and that charge. It sticks even in the absence of evidence. When the program aired, fans were divided again. Ciara, meanwhile, had posted nothing and was quiet, no tweets. No stories, and her team had told her to keep quiet. Some called it damage control, while others said he sounded sincere. For the first time since the explosion, people were asking for the full story, not just a headline. One of the producers had listened to it in its entirety, and suddenly the story no longer sounded so black and white. But she listened, frustrated, not realizing that one of the mic texts had saved a backup recording from earlier in the scene, and that although the raw audio had not yet been shared, it was there. And you could hear the exact tone of her accusation, the pause, the smirk, and the words. A short video of her saying, "You made me feel like you could," with background laughter, began to circulate, which made matters worse for Ciara. Fans began criticizing her, accusing her of playing on fear, and comment sections were overflowing. Once again, can't air it without legal approval, but it shows intent. Intent isn't illegal, and it's not ratings either, but someone was already leaking parts of it anonymously. "This isn't over, but you're not alone," she added, looking at Mendeecees. Mendeecees nodded, but he didn't smile because he knew that something had changed forever. She didn't celebrate, and she didn't say, "I told you so." But this time the responsibility was shifting, and she played that man on camera. This is why people don't take true victims seriously. It was unclear whether either Ciara or Mendeecees agreed, but the damage had already been done, not just to reputations, but to trust, to truth, and to the idea that reality TV could still be real at all. Even if the truth came out, even if the network apologized, even if fans saw the real footage. At the end of the week, the producers announced that filming would resume under careful supervision, that security would be increased, that scenes would be reviewed more closely, and that both Ciara and Mendeecees would be invited to have private sit-down confessionals to wrap things up. One thing is certain. Something broke that day, and it wasn't just a microphone. The fallout from Ciara's accusation and Mendeecees' breakdown has left fans completely divided. Producers scrambling and the entire cast walking on eggshells. We know that the drama is deep, but this hit is different. We don't yet know whether Mendeecees will resume filming, whether Ciara will double down, or whether VH1 will try to bury the footage before things spiral even further. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We would like to know if you believe that Ciara went too far, Mendeecees was correct to react, if the producers should have stepped in sooner, if this is just the price of being a reality star, if a single incident can ruin years of development, if the truth will eventually be revealed, and most importantly, Mendeecees can move on from this, or if his public image has already been irreparably damaged. Don't be timid. If you're as interested in this drama as we are, please like this video and subscribe for more. to ensure you don't miss anything that's truly going on behind the scenes. Turn on your notifications and receive exclusive updates. Because even if the cameras stop rolling, the story in this world doesn't finish. It never ends.